As a couple, we always placed our family first. But then, life presented a higher calling. We were given a chance to make a difference in the lives of your children, and we certainly did. As President of Guyana, my husband became a new father, ensuring their future was secure, and I, a loving mother all over again. Your family is our family, and we the Ramotars believe in a future that belongs to you. Help us to continue our life's work. There is yet so much to be done.
Hello and welcome to what is the first in a series of programs titled Re-elect Donald Ramotar. I'll be your host, Romel Roopnarine, and over the course of these programs, we will try to establish exactly why the people of Guyana should come out on May 11, 2015 and re-elect President Donald Ramotar for a second term in office. Now, today's program, I want to focus specifically on youths and why our youths need to come out to re-elect Donald Ramotar. What I will do first is go to a letter that I sent to the media, which was published on February 19, 2015 in the Guyana Times. And I would encourage you to pay keen attention to the content of this letter because it is very important in helping you to determine which party you will vote for come May 11. Now it starts, Dear Editor, come May 11, your future lies in your hands. It is no secret that for the past two Congresses, PNC leader David Granger was elected from very questionable voting procedures. Vincent Alexander and company were the first set of victims, and the latter saw Aubrey Norton, Sharma Solomon, Vanessa Kissoon being allegedly slapped at Congress Place by Granger's Lieutenant General Secretary Oscar Clark, falling victims. A gunman was even used to prevent security or scrutiny of voting procedure at Congress Place. Yet David Granger wants us to believe that he has truly broken from his past when, as a senior aide to the late PNC dictator Forbes Burnham, he was planted into the army for political indoctrination of ranks. From there, the nation witnessed massive rigging of elections, but Granger has neither apologized or even acknowledged what occurred under his watch. This is the man the AFC leadership wants Guyanese to trust. From the most progressive regional economy in the 1960s, under the first PPP government, Guyana was reduced to the second poorest in this part of the world under the PNC by the time democracy was restored and free and fair elections could be held again in 1992. This occurred when the then United Force Party under Peter Degar decided to enter into a coalition with Burnham and the PNC. Some say today it is deja vu, but that will ultimately depend on you. History has shown that Degar and his party were eventually ejected from their government positions by the PNC as it cemented its grip on power through undemocratic means. He would go on to rue his decision to join with the PNC, but it was too late. Fast forward to 2015, and our nation finds itself in a similar situation. Burnham's protege, David Granger, is now leader of the PNC, and the AFC under Moses Nagamutu, who himself was never unanimously supported by his party, has decided to enter into a coalition to unseat the PPPC government. Again, our economy is considered one of the most progressive in this part of the world, recording some of the highest growth rates in recent years. Historic achievements have been made in almost every sector. Access to education and passes are at their highest levels, while dropout rates are at their lowest. Unemployment is at its lowest levels, while several projects which will create thousands of additional jobs in the next few years will result in an increased competition for labor. access to housing, potable water, electricity, healthcare, both primary and secondary, are at their highest levels in our history. Infrastructure development has never been higher. The road to these achievements by the PPPC was never an easy one. How could it have been when our nation had an opposition which publicly stated their intention of making our country ungovernable? How could the path to development be an easy one and a straightforward one when our nation and government endured a campaign of slow fire, more fire? The scars still remain, some seen, but most unseen. A walk down Regent Street would confirm this, with the shell of the burnt-out building which was formerly the headquarters of the RPA. Those judging our achievements and continued challenges in certain areas conveniently forget that the deadliest crime wave in our history had a direct political hand guiding it. Many who could have fled did so, taking with them the monies they would have ordinarily invested here. Overseas businesses who were being encouraged to come stayed away. How could this not have affected our development? But the PPPC stuck to the task and absorbed the blows, while at the same time pushing forward its agenda of development for all. Then came the aftermath of the 2011 elections, where the combined majority enjoyed a slim one-seat majority in the National Assembly. As we come to the closure of this current, obviously I pointed out the time that this letter was written. As we come to the closure of this current Parliament, it is now fitting to ask any citizen to name a handful of things, just a handful, that the AFC-APNU alliance did during their one-seat majority to benefit Guyanese citizens, particularly the working class and, more importantly, the youths. Many of the opposition supporters today rehash the AFC's 2011 campaign slogan of change, which, incidentally, they copied from the initial Barack Obama campaign. But what they are not telling us is exactly the kind of change they are supporting. What credentials does the AFC-APNU have from the current Parliament that would make an average citizen vote for them? With fuel prices at their highest and the need to rehabilitate the GPL networks to provide a more reliable and cheaper service to citizens critical, the AFC-APNU cut crucial funding for these projects, knowing that the alternative was a 22% tariff hike on the very sugar workers or public servants, or you, that they claim to be concerned about. It was President Donald Ramotar who stepped in to prevent such an outcome. It was he who finally established a minimum wage and new work hours to stop the exploitation of workers. Today, some persons gleefully reveal that they are no longer required to work on Saturdays because of this move, and if they do, they have to be paid extra. It gives them more time to spend with their families or focus on themselves. This is what a working class president does. It was the opposition which unapologetically cut empowerment projects through the Amerindian Development Funds for hinterland communities across our nation, and then sent their supporters to verbally abuse and attack those very Amerindians who came out to protest the actions of the PNC equal APNU AFC. It is the opposition which pretends to be concerned about jobs, cheaper energy, and private sector development, yet it was they who torpedoed the Amelia Falls Hydro project. Thankfully, President Donald Ramotar has now confirmed that his government will be pushing forward with the project later this year during his next term in office. It is the opposition which claims to be concerned about corruption, but has steadfastly refused to support the anti-money laundering legislation, despite numerous concessions by the PPPC government and the continued threat of this nation being financially blacklisted, thereby putting our economy and people under numerous hardships. Why would you not want to make it easier and more transparent to track money from questionable sources if you are accusing the government officials of pocketing kickbacks? Interesting. Who are you trying to protect by your stubborn refusal? The PPPC in the next term will ensure this is one of the pieces of legislation passed immediately. Clearly, challenges still remain, but the plans to address the issues of our people have already been put forward to the public by the PPPC. We know how to get there. We know how to get there. But that will ultimately rest with you, the voter. You will have to decide exactly what kind of change you are supporting, whether a cosmetic change or progressive change, real change. You will have to decide if you will entrust your future with those who, when they enjoyed a one-seat majority in the National Assembly, opposed all the development and empowerment projects for you, your children, your family, your community, your region, your country, or the people who have been fighting for your continued development, the PPPC. Sure, you may not have gotten all you desired. You may have disliked a particular individual in authority, may not have gotten your road done in time. But that is not a reason to withhold support for an entire movement which has been working tirelessly in the best interest of this nation and ultimately in your interest. Come May 11, the future of this country rests in your hands. Think wisely before you vote. Now, as I said earlier, this letter was written on February 19, 2015. And that was before you had the closure of Parliament and so forth. But one of the things that the opposition attacks the government on is our focus on their track record. And if you notice, whilst I dealt with the past and I show how, or illustrated exactly how history may repeat itself, I placed primary focus from 2011 or the start of 2012 when they got into Parliament when their one-seat majority, up to the point where the opposition, was pushing a no-confidence motion which would have led to elections and leaving the president with no choice, despite his appeals, for the opposition to act in a sane manner and push through the critical bills, such as the Telecommunications Bill, such as the new Education Act. But what did the opposition do? They said no, they will move ahead with their no confidence motion. These were critical legislation that would have benefited the average Guyanese out there. Why would you not want improved education? In fact, that is one of the issues that David Granger campaigns on. Yet, when the legislation was there, he did not find anything critical about it. They just simply said that they would not support it. They would move with a no confidence motion. Are these the people that are genuinely concerned about their children and their education? Now, I have some more facts that I will share with you later on in the program regarding the education sector, but specifically for youths out there. I want to remind you of what the opposition told not just the youths, but every single Guyanese when they started the process of cutting the budget and the effects were being felt. Persons lost their jobs. Development was withheld, at least it was affected across the country. It was no other than the opposition that looked at you in your face and told you that you were simply collateral damage. You were simply collateral damage in their quest for political power. Yes, you remember that? It was no other than Kemraj Ramchatan, then leader of the AFC. Now, the very people who told you that you were collateral damage, that you were of no concern to them, the very people are coming into your communities now and soliciting your support. And what they're doing, they're playing a very smart game. On one hand, they're playing a very racist game, and on the other hand, they're calling for change and love and unity. And that is what they expertly did in the last elections as well. So this message is particularly now directed to opposition supporters. The opposition, they feed on this tribalistic manner. They do that quietly. And recently they attacked former President Barra Jagdeo for exposing exactly what they did. But we have to speak out against it. Look recently, how they started to use the killing of Crum Ewing, another young man. Now, we are all rational people, and we have to ask the question, who benefited from the death of that young man? A lot of things came out from that killing that shocked me that the opposition did. You saw the effects on social media and the whisper campaigns around the country in certain communities. And I think we have to be very careful. We have to be very watchful of what the opposition is trying to do. They have consistently sought to divide this nation at every single juncture. History would prove that. The last parliament would prove that. This elections, it is evident. Why would you want to vote for someone that is clearly telling you, and this was directed to opposition supporters who would have been affected by a 22% tariff hikes? The youths out there. Those youths, like the young man who was 24 years old and now owns his own home. The youths who are studying, going to UG, going to school. Mommy and daddy would have had less money to finance your education because that money would have had to go and been diverted towards paying a 22% tariff increase. And you were the collateral damage. Yes, you were the collateral damage. That is how you would have stood to be affected. It was no other than President Donald Ramotar that stopped. He stepped in and he said, no way, our people will not be affected. He instructed GPL to put a halt on the tariff increase. You know subsequently what happened. Despite the attacks of the opposition, the government went to court. We were vindicated with our position. Monies were restored. But still, how can we forget what the opposition was willing to do, was willing to push our people to? When those workers from the ERC, we do not know who they supported, but when those workers from the ERC went to David Granger to beg him to save their jobs, he scoffed at them. Yes, he did. He scoffed at them. He said, let the chips, that is basically what he said, let the chips fall where they may. And these were just innocent workers. They did not take on a partisan position. When one looked at the image of the workers, you cannot know who they would have voted for. But he was willing to make these workers collateral damage. A lot of them were youths. Let's not forget the hundreds and thousands of youths that were protesting on the streets of Georgetown against the opposition to protect their jobs. How can we forget that? How can we forget their budget cuts, despite whatever excuses they want to make, their budget cuts for loans for UG students? They keep harping about the situation at UG, yet they were willing to deny not just students the chance for education at UG, but those funds were critical towards the functioning of the university, the administrative aspect. They were willing to hamper that. Yet they turn around and say they are concerned about students of the university. Are those the actions of anyone that is genuinely concerned about their students at the University of Guyana? I think not. So that is why we need to be very smart and we need to analyze everything the opposition says. In fact, quite a number of the things that David Granger and his crew have been promising are things that have already been implemented by this government and which I will deal with specifically in another program. These are the people who are telling us that they are concerned for our youths. Apart from affecting the youths through your cuts to the Amerindian Development Fund, look at the hypocrisy of Mr. David Granger, because I'm seeing that he just recently mentioned that funding is a priority for UG under an AFC-APNU government. Now, what nonsense, what utter garbage is this? I just finished telling you that when the very Mr. David Granger had a one-seat majority in Parliament and had the opportunity to support funding for the University of Guyana, he cut it. He cut it without any apology. Now, when we are heading towards elections, he's telling us that his first priority is funding for UG. What nonsense is this? Are you going to believe him? When he had the opportunity to act, what did he do? He deprived the university of funding. Now he wants your votes. He's going to say that that is his first priority. This is the level of deception by the opposition. And this is what we have to be careful about. As I come closer to the wrap-up time of my program, I just want to provide a bit more statistics for you. The quality of the primary education system is ranked even higher at 37th in the world and second only to Barbados in Latin America and the Caribbean. Our secondary enrollment was ranked 31st in the world, while the quality of maths and science education ranked 55 in the world. Information on our ranking can be obtained from the Global Competitiveness Report. We have the lowest dropout rate in Latin America and the Caribbean. Yes, Guyana has the lowest school dropout rate in Latin America and the Caribbean, and you would know that that is something that the opposition has been attacking us about. These are the facts. Deal with it. We had 2,637 trained teachers in the system in 2011, compared with 1,875 during 1994. Stark difference. Consequently, the percentage of trained teachers at the primary level improved from 55.3% in 1994 to 77% by 2011. And the facts are all there. These are interesting facts when it comes to the education sector that the opposition cannot deny. This is the reality. But they will come and they will try to hoodwink you with some other foolishness, basically. We have to be very smart, and I want to specifically urge opposition supporters to question your leaders, question them, expose them, like what Mr. Granger just did, saying that he's interested, his priority is funding for UG, and when he had the majority, the first thing he did was cut funding for UG. This is what we need to do. So I didn't get a chance to focus on all the issues that I wanted. I wanted to focus on youth entrepreneurship and so forth, because that is also one of the areas that that the opposition basically has been trying to hammer away. But I will probably deal with that in the next program. But I think you have sufficient information to deal with in this edition. And basically, after 2015, after May 11, 2015, I told you already that President Donald Ramotar has already stated that one of the things that he will do immediately is to pass the new Education Act. Now you will have to decide if you want to support the people who attack all the initiatives aimed at empowering your children, you the youths out there, who cut the financing, who openly attacked, who tried everything they could have done to discredit all these initiatives, or the persons who have been fighting to empower you through education initiatives. And that is why we need to re-elect Donald Ramotar come May 11, 2015. I'm Romel Roopnarine. Goodbye.